Hey guys, welcome back. I have Chris Riekert with me again. Hey Chris.
Hey.
This time you are not my competition.
I don't think we get to use the frenemies thing anymore. I think now you're just a full-fledged member of Team Mike's Bikes.
That's right, yeah. Big news. I mean, you guys made an Instagram post about it, so it's not like surprise, but I think a lot of people probably don't know that. I get a lot of comments saying like, Mike's Bikes, ? And yes, Mike's Bikes, !
Full-fledged member of the team. We're slowly eking towards a complete Masters squad these days. I
Speak
think
for yourself, dude.
Hey, you got a child. I may be old, but I don't have a kid yet, so
That just grandfathers me into Masters territory.
It does. You and Sam Benedict. So we're slowly sliding that direction. But welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me on the pod.
Yeah, so we have the season opener. This is the Aggie Criterium, and it's at Land Park in Sacramento. Everyone's excited about this race because everyone's been training all winter. What we call a winter in California is not really a winter, but it's open to threes. It's P1, 2, 3. I really like this course. It's probably not Chris's favorite. It's not super technical, but you can look on the map. It's got a little chicane-y, hairpin-y kind of thing at the top. That's kind of technical. You got to slow down a bit for that first left-hander, and then you can kind of pedal through the rest. A lot of people don't pedal through the rest, though. And then the rest of it's, with the exception of the one right-hander before the very long start-finish, the rest of it's just kind of like a very long right-hand bend, it feels like. Oh, and I should mention, new team, new bike. I don't have the power meter installed yet, but for the next race, I'll have power data.
Yeah, it's for it being kind of a peanut oblong, some sort of weird nut that got caught in the bag type of shape. It races like a four-corner crit. It's tough to get away in a lot of ways. You get some big sweeping corners, so you're never jamming on the brakes or anything. The one hairpin is a little technical, and there's a bit of a crown to the road, so I think that's a little bit of a challenge. I know I struggle to carry speed through there. I don't know if anybody else does, but yeah, pretty easy course.
Yeah, and on that note of the crown, so you can pedal through the very top part of that course, the kind of two right-handers in succession, unless you get pushed wide. If you get pushed wide, you're on the kind of the bad side of the crown, and then you can clip a pedal much easier. But if you're on the inside of that corner, you can take it at a much higher rate of speed, and you can pedal through it because that crown allows you. It's almost like a bank.
I don't think I've ever been on the right side of that crown. I was just positive it was bad every time.
Okay, well, that didn't slow you down.
Okay, well maybe that's your job this year, is to show me the good line at race courses, because I was unaware of that.
So there were five of us, and what was our plan pre-race? We wanted to win, of course.
That's typically the first thing we say in the race meeting. So we always do, and I think for anybody that's listening to this, I think a good starting spot for any team is make sure everybody gets there to the race early and come in with an action plan. And so we sat down with our 5 riders. We had 2 sprinters, Jeff and our other sprinter from the last few years, Matt Chattelong. And then we had myself, Andrew Shimizu, and Creighton Gruber, which are all kind of all-around riders, capable of riding a breakaway, capable of riding the front if we need to. So we needed to pick a strategy based off the talents that we had. We knew we had a pretty strong sprint at the end with Jeff and Matt, and so we wanted to make sure that we saved them for the end. So for them, a lot of what we really pointed out was, if you can cover attacks as they're starting to go up the road, don't waste a ton of energy. If you can slip right into the slipstream, do it. But if not, then leave that for Creighton and Andrew and myself to cover. For the rest of the race, we really looked at the field, and it's early season, so we're all soft, us included here. But we have to try to figure out, how do we manage the field? How do we tire the field out so that we can really put a good lead out together at the end? A strong racer that was here, and a good friend of mine, Iman Lucas, was at the race. And Iman's a monster. I'm pretty sure he's 7 feet tall, and if you've ever seen him flex on his Instagram channel, you know how strong he is. So we were worried about him, and we were worried about his sprint, and we knew we needed to do some body blows on him. So myself and Andrew and Creighton were really responsible for continuing to attack him throughout the course of the race.
Yeah, he was the big threat for sure. And then there were some other teams at the race that we had to look out for. Basically, we just with the 5 of us there, I think it's safe to say we didn't want a group getting up the road more than like 1 or 2 that didn't have us in it. And if it's Iman, we have to mark him no matter what, because he can go solo the whole race.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. You've always got to be thinking about how do we win the race from this point. And so in our pre-race discussion, we really talked through the idea of if myself or Creighton or Andrew do get up the road, let's think about what that composition of the group is. Are we pulling along a strong sprinter? Should we sit on the back of that group and wait for one of our sprinters, Matt or Jeff, to come across to us so that we have some extra horsepower? You've got to play the race as it starts to unfold, and I think that was something that's really critical in this situation. We did have the numbers, which, it's a blessing and a curse, because everybody looks at us as though we are going to, take up the majority of the pace setting and take up the majority of the tactics. But at the same time, then that does put that onus on us. We have to race that way, and we have to try to stack breaks in our favor.
And that means we can race the way that we can have the race unfold kind of the way we want it to, if we're the ones setting the pace.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm going to elaborate on a thing you said. So we wanted to make sure that if you are in a breakaway, be absolutely sure that you can win from that breakaway. Otherwise, you're not doing any work. Just let it come back, reset. And that was something that we made very clear before the race, because that's an easy mistake to make. When you come to a race with a team and you find yourself in the breakaway, I think it's a common problem to think like, oh, I've made the break. I'm going to win the race, and I'm going to work myself into a tired mess that I can't sprint out of. So we want to make sure that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, it's Jeff is totally right in saying that. I think everybody's probably got some sort of story. I know I've got plenty of those where I put myself in deep over my head in a breakaway, and I'm like, I'm going to drive this personally to the finish line, and then you just get smoked later in the race. So it's really, really important. We want to make sure that whoever's in the breakaway is being cognizant of how the race is unfolding itself, and keeping that front of mind. How do I win this race? And if I can't win from this group, then how do I reset? How do I create the best result for my team? And I think Jeff is coming into this, and one thing that we really push for on Mike's is it's a team win. I don't care if Jeff wins or I win or Creighton wins. I want one of us to be on that top step of the block, and we just got to figure out how to get there in the course of the race.
All right, let's fast forward a bit and find out how we executed those tactics.
All right, so we're jumping ahead a little bit here. This is probably halfway through the race, I think, and we've had quite a few volleys. We mentioned a second ago that one of the key things that we were trying to get at in this race was to make sure that we were using our numbers to our advantage to try to attack and try to get everybody to tire out ahead of time. So I think I have just spent a number of minutes off the front. I had a good group of I think 5 people off, and I've rested a second, and I've come back through. That was me coming through on the left, and I realized that Iman Lucas here was out of position, so I hit him again. Asked my teammate Andrew, who was up at the front there in purple as well, to scoot to the side, and I shot through on the inside. And now Jeff is on the wheel, and you're chasing down.
This feels so good, because I have a teammate up the road. I have this guy who's desperately chasing, and I'm just going to sit in the draft.
And look at that rear camera, too.
Yeah, big gap. And you see the elbow, and there's a big no from me. Like, I'm not going to chase a teammate. Never chase a teammate. You don't have to. Especially
when you've got a rider that's like chomping at the bit right here. This Mike's Devo rider, I think that's Igmar, he's really concerned about getting across this gap, because he realizes there are plenty of fast people. Iman's there. Jeff is on his wheel. I think that's I can't think of who that is from Cliff Bar.
That's Pete Morris.
That's Pete. So we're
strong riders represented. He's trying to get across, and I'm getting a free ride.
It's a good group, right? So now Iman went to the front, and he went straight through and started to pull. And again, our strategy was to try to keep him tired, so I just keep hitting him and go again. Now Iman realizes if he lets me roll, he's going to be in a world of hurt later. If that gap goes out to 20 seconds, somebody's got to close it down, and it's likely going to be him. So he had to respond again. And Jeff, what do you do?
I just sit on, and man, this is why good teamwork is just so successful. And he looks back. I don't know if you saw that back there just a second ago. He looked under his shoulder. He saw it was me. he didn't even bother flicking the elbow because he knows I'm not going to do any work.
And I think that's something that's like really important too. He understood the responsibility that he had in that moment, that if he didn't take up the reins, that gap was going to get out there really quick. And again, Jeff, we started this off with the plan of how do we keep our sprinters rested. And I think Jeff, you're really illustrating a great point here. You're at the front of the race, but you are not taking extra pulls. You're not doing more work than you have to do.
162 beats per minute. That's not easy, but for me, that's still pretty chill. And you can see the field behind. I mean, now we've been caught. Boom, there goes Andrew. Insult to injury.
Right, so Iman has just done all this work to keep us at bay. Jeff is sitting on the wheel, and as soon as Andrew and the rest of the field kind of starts to come back up, Andrew hits him again. So like, again, I'm sure, Iman, we're all sorry. I know you're going back to Belgium here soon, and you'll see this video over there. I'm sure this is part of your daily routine. We're sorry, but that's just what you've got to do. When you have the numbers, you have to continue to put the pressure on.
Yeah, and now the field behind. I think this made a big selection. I think there's a big split. I noticed when this all kind of came back together, the field was like probably lost a good 30% of the riders from this big attack. There's a split.
I'm entirely sure why Iman is continuing to ride.
It's not particularly fast, but I'm going to gladly just sit in while he just rides on the front. Yeah, I don't really know why. I mean, 26 isn't slow.
No, not at all.
Especially it's a headwind start finish, too. So I'm just like, all right, I guess I'll just kind of continue rolling through. And I take one peek back, and it's like, okay, I got a gap. So I'm not riding hard.
Oh, I remember that. Iman was saying, why don't you guys take a pull? And I was like, no, I just attack, man. And Jeff just rolled away. That's your responsibility.
Yeah. All right, maybe let's fast forward a little bit more and see how the race unfolds.
All right, so we're hopscotching around a little bit here, and we're gonna hop to what ultimately becomes the winning move here. We talked about, like, we've always got to pick a moment where we can capitalize on what's happening in the race. We're all going pretty slow. 21 is not super fast.
Preem lap, 6 to go.
They're ringing the bell for a preem lap, which I don't think I knew. I think there was some confusion on that. And Creighton, who we're kind of planning to get ready for the lead out here. You can see him up there and on the right is going to realize there's an open channel on the inside, and he just takes that moment to snap. And I think Iman is up on the front. I'm up on the front. Jeff is obviously, you're cruising back here. And at that moment, everybody just kind of looks at it and goes, all right, whatever. Like, we're not in any important part. We can let that go.
It'd been really hard for the previous 55 minutes. And if you pay attention to the speed, 24 miles an hour is really slow.
24 is really slow when you're in a big group like this. Like, we're fully capable of doing up close to 30, and you'll see that in the coming lead up. But what's happened here? Creighton really capitalized on a great moment. There was a point where there was a good lull, and he's keeping the pressure on everybody, which is what we really needed to do. So, like we said, spoiler alert. Creighton goes on in a group of 5, ultimately to be a smart rider. He sits on the back of the group really intelligently, and he makes sure that he's always thinking about that idea. How do I win this race? And in the final sprint, which you see, he smokes him. He comes out with a solid 10-yard gap at the end of this race. So congrats to him. That's his first race with Mike's Bikes as well.
Yeah, congrats, Creighton. And he had mentioned after the race how he did it, because he told us he felt confident in that group, but just to make sure, he was taking kind of baby pulls in that group. So he was keeping the motivation to stay away. We weren't going to chase it back. We trusted his judgment in that group. I didn't know who the other Swift racer was. He felt confident that he could win the sprint. He took little baby pulls just to make sure, and executed well.
Yeah, absolutely. First win of the year.
And this was when Iman cracked too.
And yeah, Iman's cracking a little bit here. So let's. I think we're going to hop ahead one more time, and let's go check out the lead out.
All right, so we have fast forwarded. We are right towards the end now. We are coming into 2 laps to go. The breakaway, that gap really ballooned out. They're probably, I want to guess, 35, 40 seconds.
The train has left the station.
They're gone. So now we want to take the front, like we talked about, with 2 laps to go. Whether or not it's for the win, we're taking the front with 2 laps to go. We're going to practice this. We also want to maybe claim 6th place, keep it safe, keep it fast. And the order here is important. So you see Iman's in front of me with the calves of thunder. And those Euro calves. And in front of Iman is the rest of Team Mike's bikes. So I think it's going to be Matt in front of Iman, who isn't going to be doing any work. Matt is going to be the last lead out for me.
This is your lead out, Jeff. This is you need to know this position. You're looking at me to affirm it.
I'm just making sure. Yeah. And then on the very front, it's going to be Chris and Andrew. And Chris and Andrew are going to be taking turns on the front just to set pace and make sure that nobody can come over the top. And what were you guys doing? Like half lap pulls? How was it working on the very front?
Well, we talked about a strategy, and again, like this comes back to having that time ahead of the race where you're calm and you can actually talk it through. Originally, when we had planned on doing a 5-man lead out, we had expected that Creighton, Andrew, and I would be rotating. Matt would not be rotating. Jeff would not be rotating. Creighton and Andrew were going to burn themselves off, and I would end up bringing the guys through the last technical corners and try to get them through that final kink. So the final kink into the last
final
corner.
right-hander.
Exactly, that final right-hander onto the long headwind drag, because we really wanted to have Matt give the longest amount of time possible.
This is where I got back on Matt's wheel. Sorry to interrupt, but Matt was looking back at me and he was like, "Where are you? We're getting close to the finish. We're a lap and a half." And I knew I needed to take Matt's wheel at some point. I was fine behind Iman. Iman's a fantastic draft. He's 200 pounds of muscle, and it was fine to be behind him, saving a lot of energy. But at a certain point, I needed to get around Iman, get on Matt. I chose that technical section to do it. I didn't really want to battle Iman on his straight. I wasn't sure if he was going to just try to elbow me out of his way. But now I'm on Matt's wheel, and sorry, your plan was to take us through that final kink you were saying.
Exactly. So right where we are right now is where we had originally talked about. And so right now what we're realizing is that Andrew can't stay on the front for an entire another lap. So Andrew and I are having a conversation, and that's another really important thing. You've got to be vocal with your teammates on the road.
And I was telling Matt right there, like, hey, I'm on. And he confirmed with me. He's like, Jeff, are you there? Jeff, are you there? And I was just saying yes. So he knows he doesn't have to look back. He can focus on remaining 3 inches from the wheel in front of him, being as conservative as possible with his energy.
Yeah, and now what Andrew and I have really realized is that Andrew is going to be the last guy in front of Matt. The way that worked out, Andrew needed a break. If we were going to keep this pace high, and in a lead out, the pace is so critical. You can look on that rear camera up there and you see that everybody is single file, and you can see how fast we're passing these guys that are drifting out of the break. This is the last lap. We've got to keep the pace really, really high. So we're doing 30 miles an hour. We're clicking through 31 miles an hour. We're cruising here. I think I remember going pretty deep through 400, 450 on the front here for most of this pull.
And if I had a power meter, it would be not even close to 450. That's the benefit of a lead out. I'm doing 300 here. You see 164 beats per minute, 163. With a half a lap to go is chill. I am usually white-knuckled 175 beats per minute at this point. This is why the lead outs are so critical.
And you can see that we're not fighting for wheels. We get to take clean lines. Everybody else back there is trying to figure out how they can move up. But we're in control. We're in control of this pace. I'm going to take us through these corners, and once we do that, then that's going to leave it over to Andrew to be able to come in. So what are you thinking right now, Jeff? You're still actually on easy street. Your heart rate's still in control.
160. It's even come down since we last spoke. I think it's going to come down a little bit more through the chicane.
That's that dad fitness.
That's the dad bod fitness right there. You asked me what I'm thinking right now, and this is the benefit of being in a lead out. It's less physically taxing. It's also less mentally taxing. All I'm focusing on is just staying on Matt's wheel. I trust Matt's judgment. I did yell a little bit. I'm going to yell a little bit here in a second too. I'm just trying to quarterback it a little bit because now we're 450 meters to go. We need to go. And I feel like Matt can go for about 200 and I can go for about 200. So that's when he launches. And all I need to focus on is just staying in Matt's draft. That's the beauty of this lead out. We're ripping fast now. And you're going to see it's just going to pick up from here as Matt starts to wind it up from this corner. You guys know he can go fast from this corner. You've seen in my other videos, Matt's beat me from this corner. This time I get to benefit from his draft.
Iman goes.
He gets a pretty good run on me, but man, I came in at 170 beats per minute. I got tons of reserves in my tank. Iman's been smashing all day, and I just click it into my 10-tooth with SRAM, and off I go. 40 miles an hour, 39 miles an hour into a headwind. Because of the lead out. I was conservative. I had tons of energy left over, and man, it felt good. It felt like we've been practicing this.
Oh yeah, we'd been practicing. No.
I mean, we've been practicing this all the time. No, we just came out and did this, right? Good.
Jeff and I have been calling each other and just talking through. Here's how we're going to do lead outs. No, I think this is super impressive. And again, for Jeff, for this to be your first race with us, that's pretty excellent.
Yeah.
And congrats to Creighton there, who we just passed.
Yeah, I had some bro time with Creighton there. Big things coming in 2020, guys. Thanks for watching. Chris, thanks for staying on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, talk to you guys later.